Hello and welcome to 10 Minutes on COP28 from the Joint Public Issues team. I'm Annie and I'm one of the JPIT interns this year, and joining me today is Steve, one of the policy advisors for the Methodist Church and JPIT. COP28 begins today on the 30th of November and will be going on until the 12th of December over in the United Arab Emirates or UAE. So Steve, can you just explain what COPs are and why they're significant?
Yeah, sure. Well, people remember the big COP in Glasgow when the UK was president. That was COP26. We're 2 years on now and it's COP28. A COP stands for Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And the role of a COP is each year to assess whether the collective action of states matches what we are going to need to achieve on climate change. Our aim is to keep global warming well below 2 degrees and preferably at 1.5 degrees only above pre-industrial levels.
So how are we doing for that? Are we on track in our targets?
Unfortunately, we're not. And to be honest, we're not even that close at the moment. The current policies of all governments, when accumulated together, would give us a possible global warming of around 2.5 degrees. And as we all know, that would be catastrophic for ecosystems around the world and for some food systems too. The difficulty we have is that we have some players at COP who sort of drag the ambition back a bit. We can mention some: Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, India. They've tended to be spoilers, and I witnessed that spoiling exercise at COP26. But we also have blame which needs to be laid at the door of rich industrial nations as well, who have made commitments in the past, but unfortunately not kept to them. And we need industrial nations like our own to be able to pledge support to developing nations to enable those nations to take action alongside the actions that we are taking.
So you mentioned COP26, which was in Glasgow back in 2021, and there was a lot of church and faith-based involvement there, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. That was really exciting. And we came together as churches and faiths in the UK in order to be able to engage with the UK government. We did that 18 months before the COP itself. And so we were able to bring faith leaders into contact with ministers in government. And we were able to say, as one faith voice, why this was important to us and what we expected of the Glasgow COP, what from our perspective would count as success. And it was a really good exercise for the faith groups themselves, because although we come to this with slightly different theologies, different perspectives, yet we were all on one page in terms of both valuing God's creation and recognizing our responsibility to care for creation, at the same time as being on the same page on justice as well.
And can you just remind us what was achieved at the Glasgow Summit in 2021?
Yeah, one of the notable achievements was that we got agreement in principle for a loss and damage fund, a fund that would enable countries that have had communities devastated by climate change from extreme weather events like cyclones and floods, to be able to tap into a fund to allow them to build back, because these countries typically are countries that don't have a lot of capital resource. And when Haiti, for example, is wiped out by a cyclone, they simply don't have the funds to be able to rebuild houses and communities. So these countries which have done the least to contribute to the mechanisms that have created global warming are also the least able to pay for the damage which is then ensues.
And what is the UK engagement with COP28 going to be?
Well, we're going to have King Charles there, and we're also going to have Rishi Sunak there at the Leaders Summit at the opening of the conference. I think for a lot of people, Rishi's got a little bit of an uphill struggle to convince people that he's actually on board with the whole climate agenda. Of course, recently he said that in terms of UK policy, he would abolish some of the UK transition strategies. such as the support for air source heat pumps and phasing out of gas boilers and some other measures as well. And he didn't put anything else in its place. He sort of seemed to be playing to an audience that was quite climate skeptic. So he's got some tough work to do to convince people. What's he going to turn up with at COP? What is he going to have in his briefcase? Well, it's been trailed that we can expect a pledge for the loss and damage facility, which would be great because that would get some funding into that so that we'd be able to get the loss and damage facility off the ground. We're also expecting, I think, maybe a new pledge to the Green Climate Fund. And again, that would be helpful because we have been promising the world 100 billion a year climate finance for a very, very long time, not meeting that promise. We have an opportunity in this COP to be able to achieve that.
It also follows all of the announcements about Rosebank last month as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And this is going to be a crucial area for COP. So we want to see ambition in the path for phasing out of fossil fuels. The language we want to see is about phase out of fossil fuels rather than phase down. But with the UK announcing new investment in exploitation of oil and gas resources, it would appear to me that we're not in a strong position to contribute to that agenda. So let's see.
So what are we hoping the outcomes might be from COP28?
We'd like to see fossil fuel companies have to stump up cash to pay for some of the transition strategies that are required. So we are working with groups like Make Polluters Pay, who are advocating for innovative financing mechanisms that will enable countries around the world to put mitigation in place to be able to transition to becoming low carbon economies in the future. That would be a significant gain. In addition, we're looking for pledges to the Loss and Damage Fund, which would get that fund started. And also, we would love to see the 100 billion in finance for mitigation. This was a commitment back in Copenhagen in 2009. It's a commitment that's not been made yet, even though we are now, 14 years on for that. The commitment was for there to be $100 billion in climate finance annually, and we possibly have the opportunity to achieve that for the first time this year.
And can you just run us through the kind of timetable of events? What will the representatives be doing at COP28?
Sure, they're going to be arriving Friday, tomorrow, and then we have the big media opportunity. We have the Global Leaders Summit on Saturday and Sunday. So this is when the heads of state, if they're attending, fly in. There will be a lot of warmer words said on that occasion. The idea is to try and put the right mood in place in order that delegations can achieve some ambition. After that, we have a week's worth of technical negotiations, and then we have the second week, which is ministerial negotiations. And it's that second week, and particularly the last 2 or 3 days, where all the critical issues are decided. And then we see whether we get a statement at the end of COP or not, and whether that statement actually has any value.
And what can individuals do to get involved with COP28?
Well, first, let's pray over the next few weeks, next couple of weeks, that the delegates of COP make brave decisions, because that's what we all need. People might then make good use of the campaign actions of Make Polluters Pay and also of Christian Aid, both of which are producing really good advice for people. And then finally, we've got a general election coming up over the course of the next year. This is our opportunity to ask prospective parliamentary candidates what their parties are going to commit to in terms of achieving rapid transition to net zero in the UK, but also in terms of how we're going to support climate change action in other parts of the world as well.
And to find out all of our COP28 updates and content, head over to our COP28 webpage. You can find that at jpit.uk/COP28. So thank you for listening to 10 Minutes On from the Joint Public Issues team. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then please do share it around. And you can find out more about JPIT on our website, jpit.uk. That's jpit.uk.